Farhan, I wanted to get down to some specific issues, because you mentioned that leaving Islam was such a major change, was such a difficult step to make. What were, if you had to list some of the main reasons, what would be kind of the big issues that pushed you over that edge?
I mean, I think that it was a couple of reasons. The first and foremost reason was due to my education in psychology and my pursuit in a career in mental health. I was dealing with a lot of people who are suffering. You know, people who are self-mutilating, cutting themselves, suicidal ideation, you know, all kinds of, you know, mental and psychological disturbances. And so I saw a lot of suffering, and I thought about them, and I thought about a lot of, you know, just general humanity. And I thought about, you know, what Islam, you know, says about them in general, that their lives are a waste because they're not, you know, bowing to Allah 5 times a day, saying stuff in Arabic and growing their beards, and their women aren't wearing hijab, as if that is the purpose for why God created them. You know what I mean? Yeah. And on top of that, that their destiny is going to be, as chapter 4, verse 56 says, that their skin is going to be burned off and replaced with new skin, endlessly. An actual physical, endless torture that they're going to go through. And I think it was a combination of putting all of that together that opened up all of the other issues that, for example, that I've been reading about and even debating about with you guys and other people. You know, stuff like Abdullah ibn Abisar and you know, Zainab's marriage and the satanic verses, and you know, the list could go on and on about the controversial things about Muhammad ibn Abdullah and his companions. But that was the big thing that came at me, was understanding the intense indoctrination. Literally, it's probably the most intense and most disturbing indoctrination that exists on our planet today, and it gets people to act violently and viciously and oppress people and want to implement Sharia law. This is what this type of indoctrination does. Even if you think that we can reinterpret Islam, we can, you know, Islam can be reinterpreted in a peaceful way, where we can focus on all of the positive verses, there is still a massive element there, and there's plenty of verses in ahadith to support it, that get Muslims to do crazy things. And everyone sees it. I mean, even the Muslims sees it. They're just turning a blind eye to it because they're emotionally attached, like I was, you know, to their identity as a Muslim. And here's my message to the Muslims, is that, look, I understand that you're emotionally attached and that you have this love for your religion, but there is so much else about Islam that's detrimental to broader humanity, and that there needs to be a movement of people speaking against an idea that's very dangerous for society. And I didn't realize that until recently. And you know, to be liberated from it, I could only want that for so many. Even, you know, when I see Muslims now, you know, as an apostate, I see these bearded guys and these women wearing the niqab. You know, before I used to be like, mashallah, you know, they're so much into the deen. I want me and my wife, my Sunni Muslim wife that I wanted, you know, I want to be like that. You know what I mean? And now when I see it, it breaks my heart. You know, even if they convince themselves that this is, you know, that this is good for them, you know, even if they think that it's good for them, you know what I mean, it still breaks my heart to see them, you know, being lured by this ideology when they could be so much more of a human being than that.
I wanted to ask a question to Farhan and then one for you, but Farhan, you kept mentioning Abdullah ibn Abisar, and you also mentioned the story of Zainab. Now, there's some people who may be tuning in for the first time, have no clue what you're talking about. In fact, as you are well aware, there are even a lot of Muslims who have no idea about the incident with Abdullah ibn Abisar, as well as Zainab. Can you briefly touch on those two incidents, because those were some of the things that troubled you? What was it about Abdullah ibn Abisar that troubled you? And what was it about Zainab that troubled you? Could you elaborate briefly? And then I'll have a question for you about what troubled you enough to leave Islam. So,
Sure. And I've brought up the story of Abdullah ibn Abi Sar before in other dialogues that I've had. And the reason why that one disturbs me the most um, is because he was receiving the revelation, Muhammad ibn Abdullah was receiving, revelation from Allah. I think it was Surah Al-Mu'minun. And, and Abdullah was able to, add, as he wanted to the book of Allah, and that frustrated him to the point that he apostated from Islam, and then and then a death sentence was sent by Muhammad, Uthman had to convince Muhammad not to kill him. In order to convince Muhammad not to kill him, they had to coerce him to convert back to Islam. I mean, it was altogether a disturbing story that that really shook me when I actually did the research behind it. In the story of Zainab, that was something that David would...
Yeah, before you get into Zainab, real quickly, so just so I can understand what you're saying, and this is for the benefit of the audience, you're telling me that this gentleman named Abdullah ibn Abi Sar would actually change the messages that Muhammad claimed he was receiving from Allah, which led to his apostasy, because any sensible person would conclude, like he did, wait, Muhammad, if you're telling me what you're writing down or asking me to write down are revelations from God, there is no way that I can influence you to change those revelations. Is that what happened?
Yeah, he was actually adding to the verses. Like, for example, Muhammad would finish an ayah, and Abdullah ibn Abi Sar would say something that rhymes with it, and it was profound. And Muhammad was like, "Yeah, go ahead and write that."
It seems that his reasoning is exactly parallel to the Muslim who might think about the story today. In other words, if you're Abdullah, you're thinking, wait a minute, if this guy's a prophet, then I'm a prophet too, because I'm saying things and he's writing them down as revelations of the Quran. But a Muslim today and he left Islam over that. He left Islam. He said, look, if there's no way this guy's a prophet, or I wouldn't be allowed to change his revelations, but I am allowed to change the revelations, and therefore this guy can't, this message can't be from God. But a Muslim can look at that and have that exact same reasoning. Wait a minute, I believe the Quran is this perfect word of God, and yet there was a guy, one of Muhammad's scribes, who could improve it.
Yes,
who can improve it? Muhammad said,
yeah,
write it that way.
Not inspired. But what if someone tells, hold on, Farhan, well, those are fabricated stories. They're not based on authentic Sunni sources. Now, I'm sure you've have met Muslims who've used that argument. So didn't you entertain that idea as you were studying that story? Didn't you think that maybe these are fraudulent tales and therefore they don't hold any weight as far as Sunni Islam is concerned? If so, then how did you deal with that?
Well, I mean, I did think that for a while. And a matter of fact, I was finding ways, and I was finding the typical arguments, against that it was fabricated. This is not from an authentic source. Stuff, just a typical Muslim response. I mean, this is a typical response that Muslims give. What you're saying is that, oh, this is not fabricated and stuff like that. But there's so many stories like this about Muhammad that they consider fabricated. First of all, why do these fabrications even exist? Exactly. Second of all, I think David Wood made an excellent point when he debated Robert Spencer in terms of the principle of embarrassment. Why even narrate this in the first place? And then on top of that, there's so many other incidents, like the satanic verses, is another perfect example of this. And it has like over 30, chains of narration leading to it. You know what I mean? And why would people fabricate this? You know what I mean? About their beloved. Exactly. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so, I mean, again, it took me, like I said, to realize that Islam is not the ultimate reality behind our existence in order for everything else to start making sense. You know what I mean? Before, I had to have a reason and interpretation to get around it.
I see. And again, real quickly, what about Zainab? What was it about Zainab that you, because you mentioned Zainab, the story of Zainab. What is that all about?
Well, David, I think in 2 of our debates brought her up. And, I found myself, desperately trying to say that, oh, Muhammad was a man, he got aroused when he saw her, and and stuff like that. That's natural. That's the type of arguments that I had in my mind. You know what I mean? There's a reason why, he was still a human being, he was an angel, and so he naturally had these inclinations. But okay, even if he did, you know what I mean? You have to be the better man than to try to get your own adopted son's daughter. You know what I mean? There has to be a bigger morality there. That even if Allah revealed to you that you could have her, you should still be the better man and say, no, this is my adopted son's daughter, dude. I got to chill out on that. And it didn't happen that way. And you know, I just think that the story is just not. It just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make any sense to me.